questions. So if you have questions, I think at the end of each slide, they'll probably open it up for that, and we can kind of keep this conversational. The goal is just to help you guys through this process so that you feel comfortable about entering your buildings, and hopefully we have a very exciting competition this year. So with that said, I also want to acknowledge, before I forget, that I have two co-chairs, Robert Buccio and Stephanie Switz, and we're just very excited to be putting this event on for you. So I will pass it on to Susan and to Marty.
Good morning, everyone. I think I'm going to take the first slide here. Just a little bit of history. I was the chair in 19 and loved it, and I love the TOBYs. It was, or co-chair, I should say, but it is one of my passions with the BOMA program. I think it's just a wonderful program, and so happy that you guys are all thinking about putting in a building, and it's really a fulfilling experience, and I think something that you'll be very happy that you did. So I think one of the biggest questions is why be part of the TOBY program? And I think there's lots of answers to this, but I've put some bullet points together to sort of hopefully give you the value of what you can get out of this. And I think one of the misnomers about the TOBYs is that it's all about how pretty your building looks. And that is really not the case. We know that there's all sorts of different ownership groups, different budgets, and buildings can't all look the same. They can't have all the new shiny bells and whistles that all the buildings have now. It is about how well you manage your building. What are your processes? How do you manage your vendors, your tenant events, your construction? This is one of the biggest questions we get is, well, I have stuff under construction. Well, that's okay. How do you manage that? Do you put up signs? Do you contact your tenants? It's really about how you manage your building, your teams that make it all work. And it's just not about how pretty it is. And that is one of the biggest, like I said, the biggest misnomers really in the industry is that it has to be pretty. You can do a lot of things with paint, just cleaning up storage areas and things like that take very little time. Well, they take time, but they don't take a lot of money. And if you don't have a lot worked into your budget for the year to update your building for the TOBYs or for any other reason, you can still do a lot to make it very workable. Another thing that I believe this does is it's team building. It brings your team together in a way that I have found in no other way, because you have to come together and prepare the building, prepare your vendors, prepare your engineers to be ready for this event. And the next bullet point is knowledge of the building. And what I found is that through the years, I found out things about some of the bigger buildings we managed that I didn't know because I wasn't in that room a lot, or I wasn't in that area a lot. But when it came to deciding how I was going to showcase the building, then I needed to find out every single thing about that building, and your whole team does. So the team building and the knowledge of the building really come together as a team, as a group, to help you showcase your building. It's just, to me, it's invaluable with your whole team. I think it's a lot of fun too, and it also can be a lot of fun for your tenants, because we've always gotten our tenants involved, and even some of our ownership groups. We had an ownership group come to the TOBY Awards with us a few years ago, because everybody can get excited about it. This is fun. This is exciting. We're showcasing where you live every day for 40 hours a week. Some of the tenants could care less, but a lot of them really do get excited, and excited for you guys as management teams. I think it's also a very good way to build a good relationship with your vendors, because they are an integral part of this process. I know when we were doing them, we were really relying on the janitorial, the landscapers. In fact, we would have meetings with them to walk the building and discuss what areas need attention, how can we make this better, even with, like I said, with cleanup, without spending a lot of money. So it really also is a good relationship builder for your vendors. And you possibly can even find some new vendors if you're looking for something different to be done. So it's an opportunity for both the vendors and the managers to really work together as a team. I also believe that it gives you an increased awareness of the tenant's needs, because you will be talking to your tenants and you might find out things. I know most companies these days do surveys that the ownership groups send out, or a lot of them do. So you probably have some input about what the tenants are feeling, wanting, needing. But if you don't have that, this is a good way to really get a feel for what your tenants are seeing. You know, you may go tell them you're going to do this, and the tenant will say, well, that bathroom's a mess. You need to do something about it. And maybe you aren't aware that they even thought that. So it's a really good way to also connect with your tenants. And I don't have here on here, but also your ownership groups. I would stress that if you can, get them involved. The more they're involved, the easier it's going to be for you to go through this process. Questions about this page before we move on? Okay, I think we're ready to go to the next page, Stephanie. We put a couple of testimonials in here just because we thought it would be helpful for you to see what some other people said. This is from Elizabeth Porras with Lincoln. She said the benefits of being a competitor brings you and your team closer together and allows you to have a better understanding of your building. You really get to dive in and see all the nooks and crannies you have never noticed before. Sounds like me on the last slide, right? The best part is the day your building is judged. That is the day to shine and showcase what you and your team have accomplished and will continue to do for your building. And it is. She's so correct with that. It can be the scariest day, but it's also can be a really fun day.
Right.
Okay, next slide.
So Steve Hamill gave us this one. He's from Hines, and he said as a participant and a winner of the 2018 BOMA TOBY Award in the 500,000 to a million square feet category, I must say receiving an accolade of having the most prestigious building in Phoenix, which was Renaissance Square, was truly an honor. Not only did it recognize the property, but it recognized our Hines management team and ownership group who has invested nearly $50 million in our project. We are very proud to participate in such a competition, as it has allowed us to be recognized in the industry as a leader in property management for delivering excellence in all facets of building operations, engineering, tenant relations, amenities, community involvement, customer service, and building standards. I would strongly encourage any manager to enter their building into the competition and receive the same notoriety Renaissance Square received, as this award will be held in extremely high regard for years to come. And I will say that that's true, because when my building back in the 90s won a TOBY, my owners were so proud to be that they won the TOBY. They all came to the gathering. It was just a really nice award for them to be recognized for the money that they put into the building, because they bought it out of receivership, and then they put money into it, and then we wound up showcasing it at the TOBY, and it was just wonderful. And I also like the idea that now BOMA International has changed TOBY to mean the outstanding building of the year instead of just the office building of the year, because outstanding building of the year could be anything: a retail center, a warehouse project, industrial park. You know, there's just so many different commercial buildings we have that it's nice that it's not just recognizing office only. So next slide, ma'am. So the submittal process is pretty simple. You complete the entry form, you submit it to BOMA, determine your category. Now these say see handout, because I think when Marty did this, it was in person. We had handouts, but you can get these, and we will email them to you. Anybody who's interested in entering their building will do this. You determine your category, you look at the handout, because there's all different kinds of categories. You have the office building, which includes several categories like corporate, historical, medical, suburban office, and low-rise, mid-rise, and high-rise office. The last three categories are distinguished by square feet. So you'll notice that people win for the 100,000 to 249,999 category, and then they go to 250 to 500,000, and like Steve's group won the 500 to a million. So and then we have mixed use and public assembly, which we never used to have, but there's so many buildings that are now mixed use, with all the retail centers, hotels, and everything being mixed in with office product. It's really nice that we have that category. And public assembly is another one where people are managing things where like outdoor areas and places where people do assemble to watch a concert or do a public meetings or anything like that. So industrial buildings, retail, both open air and enclosed retail centers are welcome to enter. And there's 2 different categories they'll be graded on. So if you have a retail center that competes, if they're an open air one, they wouldn't compete in the enclosed retail center. So like an enclosed retail center would be more like a mall. And then the open air would be more like Biltmore Fashion Park, or the ones where they're more open. So then the earth category, which is a building that is, I think you all know this, but it's really concentrated on giving back to the environment and making sure that they leave as little carbon footprint as possible. And they're very energy efficient, and they're doing things like green roofs and things like that. And then we have the renovated category. And if you've spent a certain amount of money to renovate your building, to upgrade your mechanical systems, to make them more energy efficient, to remodel using newer materials and everything, if you put a specified dollar amount, and you'll know this when you see the little flyer that goes with it, you can enter in the renovated category. And there's not as many entries in the renovated category. So if you have done substantial work to your building, it'd be worth giving that category a look at. So.
And Susan, I know we had some questions on this over the past month or so, but for the renovated category, they don't have to currently be under construction, correct?
Right. It has to be in the last, I believe it's the last 5 years. So as long as you've done it over the last 5 years, even if you're still in process of doing it. And as Marty mentioned before, when you have construction going on, a lot of people, that makes them shy of entering their building because they're like, well, we have too much construction. It's not going to look good when it gets judged, but that doesn't matter because you want to show how you're managing that construction, and it's still, your building is still going to show off and be able to compete in the category. Just because you have construction going on should not be a deterrent to you to enter your building.
Can you confirm the judging dates?
So yeah, we're going to cover that as we move on, but we're starting the judging sometime late September. We haven't come up with the exact dates yet because I think it's going to depend on how many buildings we have and how many judges we get to sign up, and the training that we give our judges and everything else.
Okay, thank
But it
you.
will not be before September, that's for sure.
Right. It'll be probably end of September, beginning of October.
One of the biggest questions I think has always been what category. I think people sometimes have a hard time and get stressed out about what category to put your building in. So if you have questions or would like to talk it through, I know Susan and I could talk to you, but also your committee can help you figure out the best category. Because sometimes your building may not fit exactly, but what happens is when the judging is going to happen, the lead judge will come out and walk through your building, and any things that do not apply will be marked off so you're not judged on them. So if you don't have every single category to check the box, that gets marked off and you're not judged on it. So when you're trying to figure out your category, if you have any questions, please talk to somebody and we'll help you get into the best category for your building.
And each category has almost a little catalog that goes with it. So you can download those from the BOMA website for the TOBY. Each category will have it'll have all of the requirements for that, everything that you have to include in your entry. So I think that makes it a lot easier when you're looking at that as well. So feel free to do that, or we can steer you in that direction if you need to have that information.
Do you want to take this since it's still submittal?
Sure. So there's no charge to enter your building in the local TOBY. But if you do remove your building from the judging actually, we're not going to say after June 21st. I'm sorry that it's there, but it says after June 25th. I think it's going to be on a sliding scale. I think that's how you did it last time, correct, Marty? So if you pull your building out early, it'll be less of a charge. The later you get, the more you'll probably have to pay in a charge for.
So actually, anytime after June 25th, it is that $450 charge. But
It is,
if
okay.
let's say you were to enter today, and then in the next few weeks between that June 25th or between now and June 25th, it's a slight, I believe it's $300.
Okay.
So,
Entries are due, like Stephanie just said, on or before June 25th. I would love it if we had like 20 entries. That would be so great. So, but the frequently asked questions can be located at that website right there. And you can actually get a lot of answers from that if you are interested in your building, or one of us can definitely help you and walk you through it. We're more than happy to answer any questions. And if we don't have the answers, we'll get them for you. So please feel free to reach out.
Yes. Okay, the preparation process. This, of course, is up to each of you how you go about this process. So these are just some ideas to maybe help you and things to think about that I have found, and I know other managers have found over the years, not only as a judge, but also when presenting a building, because I put several buildings in, and then I also judged for many years before I submitted a building. So been through the whole process. The biggest thing that I would suggest is ask for a TOBY mentor. I believe the committee is going to provide that or try to provide that this year. And typically we try to provide someone who has been through the process. Maybe they haven't won, but they've been through the process, or maybe they have won. Maybe it's a seasoned manager such as Susan and I that over the years that have gone through so much of this. But it's so helpful. And I think Amanda had one for the year that she did it. I think she's still on, but it's just really helpful to have a mentor if you can.
I did, Marty. Yes, she was great.
Wasn't it Audra? Was it Audra? No.
I actually, no, Audra was, ended up being on my judging committee because of the
That's right.
security issues. But no, I had Tanya.
Oh, yeah. And she is really good.
Was,
She's been through the
yeah.
whole process. So
Yeah, that was fabulous. And she talked me off the ledge a bunch.
ask for a mentor, and I'm sure the TOBY committee will try to find somebody to help you. After you've made this commitment, one of the first steps is determining the path for the judging. And I know this year it's going to be a little bit different because some of it will be done virtually, but there are going to be at least one or two people that are going to actually come to your property to verify what you have in your paperwork. So you still need to determine the path of how you would take somebody through your building to best showcase the building. And I always suggest that you use the judging sheet. And you don't have to start at the top of the judging sheet. You just have to start where you feel is best in your building. But if you look at that sheet, it will help you walk the path that is going to make the most sense. Because when we had several judges, you'd have maybe 7 people wandering your building. And if you're trying to backtrack with 7 people, that doesn't work real well. So you won't have that many this year, but you still need to determine the best way to showcase your building. Walk the path with your vendors and your mentor. Tiffany Laughlin, I think you guys, most of you have met her or have heard of her. She helped me one year, and she was just such a help with this part of it of, no, don't go down there and then try to come back, show them this first. You know, it just really helps. And it also shows you what you need to take care of. Now, with that said, though, when I was a judge, I used to always try to veer off the path a little bit so that you don't just have this, they used to call it, what'd they call it, Susan, the yellow brick road or something? I don't know.
Yeah.
To where, you know, that's the area that you clean everything up. But you need to have the whole building prepared in case somebody says, hey, I want to go over to this room over here. But your vendors, again, will be a big part of that process in helping you get those areas. And, you know, your day porters, depending on the type of building you're putting in, but your day porters and all the other people. Determine what you can do to spruce up your property. As we talked, clean up and organize. Make sure your utility, electrical, and janitorial closets are in good condition. And your landscapers should help you with your tell them they should be keeping those up in the first place. But if they aren't, they should be one of the people that would be able to help with that process. As painting is an economical way to go and can go a long way toward improving the look of an area. Depending on, maybe you have engineers that can help with that if you don't have the money to hire an outside vendor for that. Schedule your required work to be completed before your judging date. Make sure you're not doing it the morning of. I've had that happen when I went to judge. They were still trying to figure things out. That doesn't look too good. It should all be ready to go when the judges come. As we talked again, if you have construction going on, ensure appropriate signage is present and that the contractor is keeping the job site clean and debris free. They need to be involved in that process only, not just you. This can be part of your best practices to show the judges. This is a biggie, especially if you are having construction. One of the big things that people sort of get nervous about is also preparing the information needed for judging, which is outlined in the website of all the different things that you need to show. And we'll talk about those here in detail in a minute. But I have always suggested a PowerPoint presentation of some sort, because typically, and I'm not sure how this is going to work virtually, and Stephanie, maybe you can comment to this, but typically we would have the judges come to a room in the building. We provide some morning snacks and have water and whatever else there for them. And then we would give them a short PowerPoint presentation of the building. That possibly is going to be part of what they submit, I guess, Stephanie, is that?
The judging is actually being done in person, so it's not virtual. So it would
Oh.
still follow the previous way of doing it.
Oh, good. Okay.
Okay.
So you could do a PowerPoint or any type of, however you want to present your building, but I think it helps them get an overview. This would be the time that you could talk about community involvement, what you've done to the building, construction projects, anything that you want to show to them. I think pictures go a long way in this of when you've had events for your tenants or anything that's happening at your building that would really be good to showcase. So whatever kind of presentation you want to do, I don't think you want it too long because judges are on a time schedule. So you want to keep that to about time frame about 15-20 minutes before they go out and start judging. You also, if they're going to be judging in person, they like the paperwork, in other words, the books for review, to be in that room because they're going to come back to that room and they're going to sit down and look through your paperwork, how you prepare your budgets, how you, your maintenance logs, all of those things that they want to see, which I think we have another slide that talks about that more in detail. But it's good if you have it all lined up and marked so that they can go and pick it up. As I said, they usually are, we like to be done by noon, start between 7 and 8 and be done before noon because they all have to get on to what they're doing. So for the day. Any questions about anything I've got on this slide specifically? Okay, you can move on, Stephanie.
So here's the list she was talking about, the physical inspection items that you'll want to make note of. So due to COVID-19, the requirements for physical distancing, a large portion of the physical inspection can be done virtually. If you do get that argument from your ownership that we're not ready to have the building completely opened yet, then we can accommodate that and do it virtually if we need to, but we will have to have at least one of the judges, hopefully the lead judge, come out just to make sure that the information that's provided is actually there. You don't want to, if you're a judge and you're judging a building and you can only do it via a virtual inspection, you just want to make sure that it's not like you see this beautiful picture of this maintenance closet and you go physically and look at it and it's not like that at all because that picture was taken 15 years ago. So just that's the only reason that we would do that, to double check, is that you know you've got the physical, the pictures that are representative of the actual building. So one of the judges would be arranged to physically be present with you to tour the building if that was needed to happen. So you'll want to make sure that your entrance and your lobby area are looking really spectacular, like the best that they've looked. Security and life safety. If you have a security office, they'll want to look at that. If you don't have a security office, they'll definitely want to look at your life safety systems. Management office, the elevators, machine rooms, and mail rooms, multi-tenant corridors, restrooms, stairwells, a typical tenant suite, the central plant, which is really important. We like to see those clean and neat and showing which way the water's going, and all the labels to be accurate and up to date. Equipment rooms and service areas, parking facilities, landscaping and grounds, refuse removal and loading docks, also your roof. Make sure you do that early in the morning. So I would suggest if you're going to do your roof tour with the judges that you do that probably first, or at least one of the first few things you do, because it's going to be warm. And then tenant amenities. Any of your amenity areas, they're going to want to know. But if you don't have specific tenant amenity areas, and maybe you have like Uber Eats come in once a week, and so you'll just want to explain what your amenities are if they're not absolutely obvious. Does anybody have any questions on this one?
I would just like to say for any of you, if you, let's say you want to put in an industrial building, this is basically what do I want to say, the paper where, this is what they're going to be judging you on,
Right.
the judging sheet. But as with an industrial building, you're not going to have some of these things such as management office. So, and also you probably don't even have anywhere for the judges to meet. But I had one person that they set up a table outside at the front of their building with all sorts of information, chairs for the judges.
Right.
And so you have to sort of think out of the box, because these things really are indicated for a office building.
Yeah.
And if you're doing any other type of building, I know we've had issues with medical buildings because they've got, patients, and doctors don't want people running around, and they've got HIPAA rules. And so if you don't have the typical office building that you want to enter, you have to think out of the box of how to do this. And again, some of us can help you with those ideas if you are stuck with something that we can say, well, maybe try this. Because we want to encourage other types of buildings besides just office buildings into the program or the judging. And so don't get put off by the fact if you don't have all of these items. We can figure out another way around them.
Yeah, because an industrial building is not going to have a central plant, and they're not going to have, they're going to have many loading docks for all the buildings that they're, so it's not like it's not going to be the same as an office. And we're so happy to help you guys to figure out what's the best approach when you're doing either an industrial or a retail center or mixed use or whatever. So please ask us questions, because we do want to encourage, like Marty said, we want to encourage people to enter all kinds of buildings. I'd love to see a, public assembly building, a retail center, a warehouse industrial building. It would be great to see some different kinds of buildings in our mix.
Absolutely. Okay. We can go to the next page, Stephanie, if you would, the next slide. The following documentation is mandatory where applicable and should be available. Online versions are acceptable, but must be available at time of inspection at the property being inspected. You could show it on a laptop, whatever you need to do, because so much stuff is done online anymore. Ease of navigation is essential to ensure that judges can easily and readily review. We have to have evidence of evacuation drills conducted within the past 12 months. Drills can be silent if applicable. Due to COVID-19, many buildings had very little participation in emergency evacuation due to occupancy issues. This is still acceptable as long as the drills were conducted. And I'm sure it's very hard. I haven't been involved in the last year in the hands-on management, but I'm sure it's been difficult for emergency for drills. I think here you could even show what your typical process was, because I know we used to meet with the tenants and set up our fire
training for your fire wardens and everything.
Fire wardens and all of those kind of things are part of the process, so that when you do have your tenants back, they know what to do if you have to have a fire drill or if you have a fire, God forbid. But I think you can show some of that in this if you weren't able to do evacuation drills. Preventative maintenance manual. I know this is important too, especially when we have engineers who are judges typically, and they really like to look at the preventative maintenance manual. Standard operating procedural manual, documentation of standard operating procedures. This doesn't have to be super detailed, but we need to understand how you do things. What happens if the tenant calls and says, you know, I can't get in my office? That's just one example, but there's thousands of things. So you just sort of have to have a general standard operating procedure. Regular financial reports, accounting software used. I know a lot of ownership groups don't want to actually show us, and we don't really want the judges to look at the actual numbers, but we would like to see what type of reports that you have to do, a package possibly. You could name it something else if you want, but what is it you send to your ownership group? How involved is it? Do you make comments? Do you tell them, do you talk about your variances? How do you deal with that type of items? Your purchasing policies, that's pretty self-explanatory. COI for comprehensive and/or liability insurance, and that would be for your vendors and your tenants. I know we want to see both of those, we need to see both, that you're gathering those for both of those entities. Certificate of occupancy or business license for code compliance. Honestly, Susan, maybe you can speak to this because I never totally understood this. We always scramble to try to find the C of Os for new construction or for tenant improvements and things, and older buildings don't always have those. Do you know what the thought process is on that?
So a lot of buildings won't have their original certificate of occupancy,
Right.
but you can get it from the city of Phoenix or the city of Tempe or the city of Mesa or the city of Glendale, wherever your building's located. They have the archived, and they will send you happily COI for each of your buildings that you manage. And so that's really what they're looking for, is just because they don't need us. I don't know about you guys, but when you're doing a construction job or a new tenant build out, a lot of times they don't even issue, if it's a remodel, they don't issue you a certificate of occupancy again because it's already been done. But they just give you a green tag and say, here, your permit's final, we closed it out, everything's done and good. And you can show that if you want to, but I don't think the judges need to see that. They just need to see that you are licensed to do business in whatever city that you're in, and you'll have a copy of your license, and if you have your broker's license or anything like that, you'll show that, and then your original certificate of occupancy for the building. And that's just, if you don't have it and you can't get it, that's just something that you're going to have to deal with at the time of the judging.
Okay, any questions on this slide? Okay. You can go ahead and move on, Stephanie, if you would, please.
So the judging process. How are the judges chosen? So BOMA asks members to volunteer to be judges. Only managers and engineers can really be judges. Judges are required to take judging training classes. And that's really important because we want to make sure that judges know how to judge a building from start to finish. And you want to make sure that your judges are looking at buildings apples to apples and not, trying to compare the last building that they looked at with this building, because maybe the last building was only 4 years old and this one that they're looking at is 25 years old. And you can't, so you want to make sure you have trained judges that know what to look for. So that's why we require them to take the training classes. 5 to 7 judges will be assigned to judge your category, with one of them being the lead judge. Once a group of judges is assigned to a category, they will judge the entire category. So in other words, if you have 500,000 to 1 million square feet, and you have 3 buildings in that category, those judges will do all 3 of those buildings. So they won't be doing that and a retail center. And it'll just make it easier on the judges, and it'll give a much better product to you as the building entrant. Mm-hmm. So what is the next step? A lead judge will be assigned to your category. The lead judge will meet with the manager to go over the judging sheet, answer any questions, and go over such items as where the judges will park, where they will meet, etc. I have seen buildings really go all out and put like signage up and balloons and everything, judges park here, but you don't have to do that. And I don't think you really get extra points. It just makes the judges feel more welcome. So if they do go out and do that and another building doesn't have that, you can't really use that to judge against them. So a lead judge is provided to guide the judging team, to be a source of information for the manager. They also will make sure that everybody knows how to judge the building, and make sure that if there's questions asked by a team member on the judging panel, that those questions get answered appropriately and that everybody has those answers. So judging will typically occur at the last part of September, the first couple of weeks in October. That is yet to be determined. It's going to depend on how many buildings we have and how many judges we do get. So does anyone have any question about the judging process? Is there a second page? I don't think so. I think that's it.
I don't think so.
Yeah.
I would suggest too, if you put your building in and you do not get a call from the lead judge, let somebody know.
Yeah,
because-
let us know for sure.
Because they should be calling you and actually coming to the building and walking through the process with you and making sure you understand what's going on. We want everybody to be as aware as possible of what they're judging, and the lead judge is really responsible for that. So if you don't hear from somebody, let somebody know. I would really encourage that. The day of judging is your time to shine. What to expect. The judges will arrive at assigned time, and this is something else you would go over with your lead judge about what time do you want to start. As we said, we try to do typically between 7 and 7:30, but I have seen it start as late as 8. It totally depends on what's going to work for you and your team. Manager's presentation and the property tour. This is where I was talking about. They will come into a room. You'll have your paperwork there. You'll give them a short presentation, and then you will do your property tour. After that, the judges return to the conference room or wherever you have them located and review the information and complete their judging sheets. Judging typically takes about 4 hours, depending on the size of your building. We try to keep it to that again because the people, of course, have other responsibilities for the day beyond judging. Scores are compiled and the winning building is announced at the TOBY Awards banquet. A few tips, and I know you don't have to do this, and it is not judged. It's just part of the overall management style, however you want to present your style. But I have always suggested having an assigned place for your judges to park, only because they don't know your building. They don't know where to park. It just helps them out the morning of. Provide light refreshments if you'd like. A lot of times they don't eat anything. I do know that water is greatly appreciated because of the time of year, even in September down in the valley, which thankfully I don't live in anymore. No, I'm kidding.
That is actually, you guys should know this. That's Marty's house up north. That's where she
where I
lives
live
now.
now. Except there's no snow right now, but
Lucky dog. Yeah.
water is greatly appreciated because even in September, as you all know, it's hot. And this is really a big thing to me, and you guys can do however you want, but use your entire team to make the tours easy and enjoyable as possible. Have somebody go ahead of you and unlock any door that is locked. Don't be standing there fumbling with keys. That is not a good look. If you're standing there and maybe you don't get the right key, I always have somebody in the front, ahead, opening doors, turning on lights, and in the back, sort of keeping everybody moving in the direction you want everybody to be moving. That is if you have enough people to do that. If you don't, I don't think it's a huge deal, but if you have the people available, it really is very helpful. Any questions? We do, just one thing before I open that up is that we try very hard to not have anybody with a conflict with your building. In other words, they're not one of, well, we don't use vendors, but they haven't worked there. They haven't managed the building before. They're separate from the building as much as possible. It's quite the puzzle to put together, but we really do our best to make sure there's no conflicts of interest. Any questions? Okay, we can move on.
So our final thoughts are just, there's always learning opportunities in BOMA. So reach out to the BOMA office. The toby.boma.org is a great reference. We really want to thank you all for joining us today, and we would enjoy and entertain any other questions you might have. After we're done here, we're just gonna let you guys ask any questions you have finally, and then if we can't answer them, like I said, we will get answers for you. That's my number and Marty's number, so we're very happy to answer those questions and for you to, you know, holler at us and tell us if you need something. We want to help you make this really successful for your buildings too.
I know on my other presentation, we had a brief about BOMA 360. Is that still something that is available? Because that helped my managers when they had to fill out the BOMA 360 information. It really helped them not only get ready for the local judging, but also if you decide to do regional. Is BOMA 360 still something that's happening, Olympia?
I believe it is.
So you mind investigate that? You can find out on the website. I don't specifically know a ton about it, but it might be something you want to check out, because I know when my managers were filling it out, they said, oh my gosh, we have to know so much information to fill this out. So might be something you want to look at. And one of the misnomers is that you have to go to regionals. You do not have to, but we would really like to have you represent Phoenix if at all possible, if you win the local judging. So
And there is a fee associated with that if you decide to go to the regionals.
with the regionals, yeah.
And throughout this presentation, there were a couple of things that said see handout. So just keep an eye out. We'll send an email after this workshop concludes sometime in the next day or so. And we'll get those handouts to everyone that joined today so that you have those as well. Yes.
You're muted,
I
Suzanne.
hear you.
Gardeners around. I apologize. I am again trying to get one of the buildings involved and as much information as I can provide. Did we either record this or can I give this PowerPoint presentation to the property manager?
I did record it.
Excellent. Thank you very much.
And just to kind of piggytail, or I always say that, piggyback to your question, I wanted to say, I know that we've got some folks joining us today that are not current BOMA members. We did welcome everyone to today's workshop, but if you are considering entering a building, please know that you do have to join BOMA if you're not a current member. And myself or Denise, that's also on today's workshop, are happy to help answer any questions that you may have about getting joined up.
Yep. And to that point, we would also just really encourage anyone on the call to tell your fellow property managers about this, about this workshop and about what you learned. We would like this to be, a really successful TOBY. We want to have, like Susan and Marty said, as many buildings and as many types of categories as possible. So if you can help us to spread the word, that's just great for everybody. We are also looking for people to judge. So if you know anyone that might be interested, again, that has to be either a property manager or an engineer, but we are asking for judging volunteers at this time as well.
I believe Monica posted a question too, and I can't see it. Can you
Yeah.
guys see it?
She's asking if there's a document that talks about what TOBY and local and next regional, I'm assuming that's the process, something that she's able to send to her ownership. So I'm going to look for something that you can use. And if we don't have something, then we'll create something.
We'll make something, you bet.
Yes, absolutely.
I don't think there's a one-page document, but I think there's some places on the website that you could pull together something that would be.
Yeah, we'll pull something together that'll touch on
And
the timeline.
just for future reference, we really are, I think it's in 2022, 360 and BOMA TOBY, they're going to be a combined, they're working on the combination right now. And so basically if you're 360, you're automatically a TOBY entrant. You could automatically enter your building because you will have almost everything that you need already done by filling out all your 360 paperwork. So it was very hotly debated whether or not it should be a prerequisite in order to put your building into TOBY. And then it was just decided it just needs to be one program, right? So we're merging the programs together. It's a work in progress, so stay tuned. But I am going to, I just will tell you, I'm going to chair the BOMA International Awards Committee next year. So I can keep you even in a better understanding, because I'll have a better understanding.
Awesome.
Well, and something, if I can add, something to keep in mind for our local competition. In 2019, our board of directors made the decision to have and to hold our TOBY competition every other year. So we are having our TOBY competition this year, which will extend through the middle of 2022 if you go on to regional and international. But we will not have a local competition in 2022. So keep that in mind if you think you'll just do it next year. I would encourage you to do it this year, and then, you know, consider doing another building or another category in 2023.
Well, and I would say have an input on that is that the thought process on that was it would give you more time to put things into your budget, because a lot of people didn't have it in their budget, and then that precluded them from being able to, they didn't think they could be in the competition. So that was one of the thought processes when we decided to do it every 2 years.
Right.
So might help you with your budgeting.
Yeah,
I think it's better to do it that way because we can actually have a gala with a lot of buildings in it. Whereas we were struggling to get like 5 or 6 buildings, and everybody was like, that's a lot of expense to put forward just to showcase 4 or 5 buildings. So they almost thought of just going back to the old days. We had it during the lunch, and then we decided to make it an actual event like International has every year. And it was so successful for a while. And then we kind of dropped everything peaked, and then it kind of dropped off. And so it'd be nice to see it peak again and get a lot of interest in it, and have our gala be really great this year.
Silly question. I don't know what 360 is. Is that somebody could enlighten me a little bit? I'm sorry.
On TOBY International, it refers to a commercial real estate designation developed by the Building Owners and Managers Association International that recognizes all-around excellence in building operations and management. The program benchmarks building performance in 6 key areas: operations and management, security and safety, training and education, energy, environment and sustainability, and tenant relations.
Okay, well, thank you. That I just didn't. I hadn't heard the phrase before, and I was like, I'm not sure what it is. But they are merging the two. Then
Eventually,
Sounds like
yeah.
it.
we'll put BOMA 360 is what it's going to be, or
No, it'll still be the TOBY.
TOBY. So I
Yeah.
not BOMA, TOBY. That's what I meant to say. So sorry.
Well, and Susan, I wanted to give you a note on the BOMA 360. After I won for the corporate facility, you know, I got a whole notification that said, you know, hey, you can go and enter into BOMA 360. Since you've basically done everything, you have just one more little section. But I believe it was a fee of like $1,600,
Yeah.
and the ownership.
Yeah, that is a substantial thing that we all were working through, taking care of that, because most ownerships are not going to go for that huge.
I definitely had an owner that said no thank you.
Yeah, they base it on square footage. It's like 3 cents a square foot or something. And it's just a lot of money. So that's one reason. The other reason that we wanted to bring the 2 programs together is to lessen the fee and increase the interest and increase the activity.
Well, and when I entered into regionals, I would have gotten, I think it was like an additional 3 points if I was a BOMA 360 building. And that was kind of why I was pushing. And I ended up not needing it, but I really wanted it.
Yeah.
Really wanted it. So yeah, that'll be great to be able to go back to the owners and let them know that those fees are changed, because we would have, but.
Are there any other questions?
Yeah.
Anybody? Thank you all for joining today.
Yeah.
And thank you, Susan and Marty. This was fantastic. And
thank you so much.
Yeah,
You're very welcome. Enjoy doing it.
Yes.
Do we have a date
job,
for
everyone. Thank you.
the event?
Yes, we have a date for the event. It's, what is it, Stephanie?
November 12th.
Oh,
November
yeah.
12th. Thank you.
I was gonna
Appreciate
say
it.
I was like, oh, yeah.
Well, this is great, you guys. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank
so
you.
very
Take care,
much.
everybody.
Bye.
Mhm.
Bye,
Thanks, everybody. Have
Thank
a
you
great
so much.
day.
Thank you.
Yes,
all.
thanks for your
joining.
time.
You're welcome.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.